Ruto, Hustler Fund is not free lunch. Access to loans. President launches much-awaited 50 billion shillings credit facility. That was one of his major campaign pledges in a bold move that could have considerable ramifications on his legacy, with a warning that beneficiaries must repay. That's what we're focusing on, and a raft of other issues here on Sokoni, holding court today with Dr. Jim McPhee, who is the director School of Accountancy, Strathmore University. Also, we have global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance, Dr. Shem Ochodo. We have Bunyasi Sakwa, who is an economist and politician as well, and Bill Okero, who is a businessman and politician as well. So we were to circle back with you, Shem Ochodo, on this, and we were pegging our thoughts also on the revolving fund. Suppose you don't pay, then what will happen to this fund?
Well, just before we broke, I was saying, I think we need just to be a little more innovative and creative. I say this because over the past 3 years, there's a fund that has been doing rounds in Africa, 6 countries, started in Cameroon, Ghana, and got into Kenya about a year ago. I think the government stands complimented in that there must be a starting point. Not perfect, but can be improved on. And I think rather than reinvent the wheel, can look around, what are some of the working systems, funds. This particular fund, for example, is a business grant, leveraging diaspora remittances, which we all agree is the major inflow for Africa now, not just Kenya. If we leverage it, this particular fund, how it operates is one identifies a relative, kith or kin, or a member of a relative or an associate in one, initially it's in 7 EU countries. And then once that's identified, you find somebody that you want to support, not giving handouts, not giving fish, but giving away, so that the main goal is, and I think our Mopping the Hustler Fund obviously is clear on what the goal is. In this, the case of this fund is, how do we inculcate the business culture? And in order to do that, of course, we must also introduce value systems. A major goal as Kenya Diaspora Alliance we put forward is trust. How do we restore trust? Trust deficit is a big problem. A number of diasporas in the past few months in Europe, in the US that we've met, the first thing they tell you, let's not talk about investment. I mean, even before you talk about investment in Kenya, there is that huge trust deficit. So inculcating a value system and also coaching, this particular fund, how it operates is, before money is given, of course, there's a fair amount of vetting, and there are coaches recruited in different parts of Kenya. This is a GIZ German project, which we could learn from. It's not perfect, I must admit, but so far, very encouraging results. In fact, I've seen cases, even just in the past 1 year, people started kinyozi very small, but after 6 months, they start bringing in equipment, and you see the business going forward. And the goal, of course, is to convert them from micro to small enterprises. So the point is, the major part of it is coaching, the business coaching, so that money is not thrown at bad. Before people are given money, they are coached and visited. In fact, ultimately, the goal is to work with the Nyumba Kumi leadership, so that when somebody says, I'm going to do this, have bought this, the aspect of accountability, and it's digitized. There's a fair amount of digital. Of course, one may say the rural communities with Fuliza, with the Likamwizis don't have technical capacity, but there are avenues to help. So I wanted just to say, if we are very creative, and where is the creativity in this fund, We Do Africa, I'm talking about? The creativity is, you match it. It's like what former Governor Kabogo tried in Kiambu, shilingi kwa shilingi. Somebody maybe was doing, say, Mamamboga, was selling, say, paraffin, puts in 10,000 shillings. The minimum actually is 30,000 shillings, around 250 euros, the minimum. But let me use 10,000 for argument's sake. Then the relative sends 10,000 shillings. Once GIZ sees 20,000 shillings, there's evidence. They double it. They send 20,000 shillings. So it's 40,000 shillings the Mamamboga has. Buys paraffin. The business grows. If it was in Mitumba business selling, there's a time comes when the maximum given is 2,500 euros. That is like 300,000 shillings. If they match it, you already have 600,000 shillings. This mama is like already a millionaire, can easily go to Dubai and bring a bill. So this is business. If their focus is to promote entrepreneurship in a sustainable manner, then we could learn from that. The reason here being the diasporas out there, who some we call donor stroke sponsor, is keen to see this business grow, not so much as an investment, but instead of every month sending $110 or $20, whatever it is, to the kith and kin, that you're giving business growth. I think that culture of entrepreneurship, if Hustler Fund can pick an idea from it, would go a long way. And as I said, it's already working in 6 African countries. And there's no reason why. I'm sure it will be improved through research and innovation. And this is where the experts we have in the room come in. I want to encourage them to look at wido.africa. That's the name even on the website. Study it, see what can we do. And I'm so happy that Kenyan researchers in Germany, professors and so on, were involved, economics professors, in designing this program. I think it would go a long way, perhaps unlike other funds government has had before, which are like donations, really. This one achieves 2 goals. One, you are supporting the very low mamambogas, but secondly, you are also inculcating that investment and business culture in them, and savings culture. And supporting them along the way. The beauty is, the difference is that this is a business grant, so it's not repaid back. But nothing stops us from doing one which is a loan the same manner.
Still, we are assuming that everyone who is in diaspora also is doing well. And I was wondering, do we have the diaspora aspect of it to this Hustler Fund? If I'm away and I'm a Kenyan and I want to access Hustler Fund, have they really considered that? I might be in Saudi Arabia, you're stifled, you don't have your salary, and maybe you want even to do your developments here through the Hustler Fund. How then? What are the dynamics? I don't know. This is something that we need to consider.
Wherever M-Pesa works.
Wherever M-Pesa works. Yeah. Okay. I get it. All right. Let's hear from Bunyasi Sakwa. I was asking about the revolving fund around it, and if you fail to pay, how does it affect also the dynamics of the assessment or accessibility of this loan? Sorry.
Yeah, whenever you have a revolving fund, and of course there's no payment, you reduce the size of the of what revolves. But as my colleagues here have actually pointed out, the losses in the revolving funds in those categories by percentage are small. There will be some, for sure. There will be some. Like they're there at all levels, and we like to quote cooperates also. With all of the expertise and capacity, they also still are not able to see the light of day when we pump in money. Like in some of our big institutions we've mentioned over and over. But I think that the success of this program is going to lie in how much care is taken as they begin implementation of it. As we go along, it will mutate in terms of goals. It will mutate in terms of scope. For sure, it will. So I think we should look carefully at it. And listening to what Shema just said, in my view, it's important now at this point in Kenya to do a 360-degree preparation for what else is out there for this sector of people. Even countries like the US, for which I can talk from first-hand experience, there are a lot of institutions, the NGO sector and some government that just specialize in providing information on what resources are available in your community. You may live in an area and you don't know that you can be supported. If you can mow your lawn, somebody can come and mow your lawn freely, but you have to reach out to these small things like those, for example. If you cannot manage to take your children to school, other schools are generally free, but you have any problem coping, there are those who can assist and so on. So maybe now we are at a point in Kenya where institutions specialize in understanding these and in providing additional information, what else is out there, so that people can pick and choose. But we shouldn't shy away from assisting those who may not be wanting a business facility now. They just want a cash flow support to buy those success books, to buy the day's food. I get requests of, if I just get 200 shillings, then I can go home. I'm still avoiding getting to the house because we didn't have money for dinner. It's that bad in the urban areas. It might be worse in the rural areas as well. Land reform issues are going to come in handy. Agricultural productivity is going to become very important, particularly for the small practitioners out there. So these things they'll grow and mutate, and I think it will fit in well. But I recall during the campaign, the president was never, the candidate then, was never specific about loan or grant. He kept saying this money will be injected in that part of the pyramid. And indeed, that is being met, injecting it there. The terms now are, of course, getting clearer and so on. It happens, we do the same when we are doing dowry. You get much more specific when the law is sitting across. You don't need to get far. Thank you.
They used to say now, if they say we want a plane, they say don't panic.
Yeah.
Yes. So we'll bring you plane, but we'll bring in bits and pieces. First, we'll come with the wheels, and this will take a longer time as well.
It never ends.
So it never ends. So over a period of time, then you'll have actually brought your plane at home. So don't get panicking. Bilo Kero, just as we wind up with the Hustler Fund, so I wanted just to get your comment moving forward. You're talking about the sustainability of it. How will it also benefit the consolidated fund? There seems to be such a disjuncture in terms of sustainability and the consolidation of this fund.
Yeah, I think this is government fund, so it has to be appropriated by Parliament. It has to be budgeted for and appropriated by Parliament. You in fact, even now, people have been asking where did they get the money, because it's not yet been approved by Parliament, but I'm sure Treasury always will regularize this probably later. But sustainability, I think two things are important. One, that Parliament, votes this 50 billion annually for this fund. It's critical. And second, that the fund itself continues to as a revolving fund, and people pay back and you keep on lending, so that it's ultimately what is lent out in a year is not actually 50 billion. It could be 1 trillion, even depending on how the turnover of the facility. So I think for the moment they have said they're giving up to 50,000 and it's for 14 days maximum. But I would imagine that's why you have a board there. They'll have to be innovative in this kind of thing. If they're not innovative, then they're competitors. They have competitors, very strong competitors. People would always want to go to the others. So I think they need to come up with new ways of assisting. For example, the president did mention the other day when he was opening the Twiga Foods facility that he would give Twitter Foods 300 million. Let them give it to their customers so they can buy products, small customers, because they deal with the retail customers. So maybe there'll be many similar innovative ways of handling these funds, and I think then it will become more sustainable if that innovativeness is brought into it, because this is technology based. So it must be easy to come up with ways of making it more attractive. And as for me, the main thing is the government needs to find a way of addressing the concerns for the businesses, the small businesses, because this one is not about business, it's personal loans. But for the businesses, people who are running a small business, they want money to enhance their business, they need to start business, they need to employ people, they can only expand. So I think let's wait and see what they'll come up with in February as pledged. They'll have something for the small businesses.
I'm sure this will have made, or it has made James Mreo, the chair of MCL, very happy. I think he was really gagging for that last week when we were speaking. But still, the question I wanted also to pose to you is, 14 days as a repayment period, isn't that a very short time for you to actually... No, the
average, you see, when Folize started, it was for an average of 3 to 7 days. Maximum it is now is 14 days. So they've just used that, 14 days of, the same time, because the people who borrow mostly borrow for 7 to 14 days. Nobody keeps 1,000 shillings for a year. I mean, you're borrowing, you want to pick something from Okolima market and take it to South Sea to sell, so it's just for a couple of days and you return back that money and collect more again. That's the idea. So 14 days is good enough for this kind of, for this amount of money. That's the average they have seen in the other similar digital credits.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't think maybe there should have been a grace period just to also to stimulate
and I think
a grace period for this repayment period, maybe for a month, then now you revert back just to see how, to pan out, to see how, what is the reaction in the market.
Yes. It's actually a month, isn't it? If you fail to pay, you have 1 month, after which you'll be blacklisted. In terms of your credit scores and so forth.
But of course you slapped with the interest on
that. But then you still have a month before you're blacklisted.
Before you're blacklisted?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have a 1 month period. Yeah.
A very quick one, I was just going to say, success of revolving funds, in principle, depend very much on the likelihood of getting the next facility. You can pay and get it back. If there is any uncertainty, that you'd be able to draw down on the facility, people who hold back what they have got so they can do self-financing, so to say. So there must be, continuity is going to be extremely important. We have to calculate the cost of non-payments, real economic costs. They might actually, the economic costs are even lower because although you don't get back the money, maybe it has done something quite useful. But we must be able to give some certainty in availability of these resources for them to revolve. The moment you indicate, even in the budgetary cycle, that this year will not be approved, for example, and people know it won't be available, there's no need to pay back, but then, because you won't be able to get it back at all, then it collapses. So that guarantee that's going to run is extremely important.
The guarantee, yeah. Okay, let's hear from Dr. McPhee.
Well, I think one's got to keep in mind that the nature of the trade the person is involved in. Because it used to be that people would borrow, let's say, 10,000 shillings at the beginning of the day. They would do their day trade, and then at the end of the day, they would repay that together with 50 shillings. And if you work that out, it actually works out at 253% interest for a day, well, for a year. Now, but I think, there are other businesses where you need the loan for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And I think the point that you're making is one which is very valid. I think, just simply laying down a 14-day period will mean that some people, simply because, trade actually is slower for them than the day. There are people who can buy a whole lot of vegetables. Okay, they buy them early in the morning from Wakulima Market. They've sold them by the end of the day. They can repay the loan. Now, for those people, this is ideal. But, there are people they're going to buy a whole lot of goods with the money that they borrow. They may not be able to sell them within the 14 days.
Indeed.
And in that case, you have a little bit of a problem. So, mind you, see, one of the problems here is that you've got to try to lay down a rule so that the whole thing can be digitized. You don't have a person at the end of the line making a decision. Okay, in your case, we're going to give you the loan for 14 days, or in your case, well, you need the loan for 3 months. That cannot be done simply because you now have a robot at the end of the line which is going to work things out automatically. So it's a very difficult thing, okay? Mind you, I think the point that, people are making here, I know a lady who runs her own, microfinance institution. And this woman has got the ability that when she lends only to women, okay, so, I've never got a loan there, okay,
Right.
but she has the ability, when a person walks in her door, she will be able to judge immediately whether this lady is going to repay or not. And her repayment
She's
loss
very discerning.
she's got this gift. And in fact, she's married to a lecturer from the University of Nairobi. When he saw the amount of money that she was making, he got a number of colleagues. They went on a retreat in Karen. They produced a document like this. And I remember I was visiting the family once, and the husband went upstairs. She said, they produced this big document, and you can see it there on the shelves, lying, gathering dust. So he had this idea. He teaches business at the University of Nairobi. Well, we're going to show the people how to do this. But this woman had the ability to actually, make that judgment. And she's got a fund of over 1 billion shillings now. This woman is so successful. But, so here, rather than, for a lady, rather than go to this, the whole thing of the Hustler Fund, okay, go and see this lady. She works in the greenhouse on Long Road.
Right. It's important, Debal, to share those experiences, if you permit, because
Continue.
there are those people who are so talented. The trust matter is so key in this, and that value system that needs to be embedded. My encouragement would be in terms of objective. I think the entrepreneurship and the saving culture, and those two often go hand in hand. But obviously, a lot of research has got to go into this. And my take would be that for people who are taking this facility for support, obviously, government has to think deeper. how are they going to repay so that we don't end up creating more problems than we are trying to solve. But if there was a shift, it could have two sides. There could be that side that targets those who are going into business, and another aspect of those who may be going into savings, and the third aspect of those who just want to deal with the immediate cost of life. A child is chased away because they don't have uniform and you need immediate remedy, or you've been going hungry for the past day or two and you just need to have something. So I think there needs to be provision for that. But for me, the most critical is we've started this, the government is thinking about the very law of the law. The very law, that's very critical because we must find a solution to them. No matter how well people may be, if the neighborhood is suffering, then of course you can't be comfortable, you can't be at home. But I like what also Jim was saying, the aspect of technology is so key. Because technology now allows you can monitor what people do daily. And I hope it's going to help inculcate that culture of accountability and transparency. This particular project I was talking about does that. Everything is captured on a portal. And you can always see at the dashboard level, the managers, whatever is happening. And if need be, and as I was saying that as the project grows, if we get to the stage where you work now with Nyumba Kumi, then you can be sure it will also help us inculcate the trust, the honesty that we require even among our own people. I think there could be no better thing that was to happen to Kenya if our value systems, Article 10 of our constitutions, would be embedded.
Right, maybe just also latching on the techie bit of it, because we've seen if you have gotten your SMS SIM card, that is, not SMS, the SIM card, if you've carried it within 90 days, then you're not eligible for this particular fund. And if genuinely I've just opened my business and I was hoping that I'll actually, that is my essence. Isn't that prohibitive? What is really informing this? Is it because of the nature of how people have been misusing the SIM cards? We had the registration of SIM cards countrywide. Why will that really apply? 90 days is such I
think it's short.
It's very short.
I think it should even be longer. Sorry, I think 90 days is a good start. So you have to know somebody a little bit. He has to provide some information. I think 90 days is quite generous, in my view.
But you have said the only requirement is you are a Kenyan and you are above 18. So why 90 days?
Why 90 days?
You see, those are broad. That's true.
It's right in the face of what's there. Yeah.
They're broad political parameters. Before the idea lands. When the idea lands, you find the terrain is different. You know, some places are flat, others have valleys. You know, so how you land is different. And I think, yes, the pronouncements that you only need to be 18, access to a phone number, you must have an ID, I guess they should have added.
That is, of course.
But I think a bit of time to see how if you're a quote-unquote crook who has just acquired a SIM card to defraud people and so on and so forth, and you throw it away. People do that. They defraud on the SIM card, they throw it away, and you go and get another one, and so on. So I hope they'll have, of course, you can track it by the ID.
But now you cannot just use a broad brush
technology. The aspect, the political side, of course, they leave to Mheshimiwa to deal with and others. But the technology part, I want to believe, and considering that there are very smart guys like Dr. Ndi who are working on this program, who must have thought of some of this. There has to be regulations to go by. I'm sure not all of this came out yesterday. And the regulations could be one of them.
But you as a techie also, you should give us a rhyme and reason behind this.
That's what I was coming to, Debal. The aspect of data science in this regard. I'm hoping that machine language and artificial intelligence, those who are operating this system will embed that so that you can also understand the culture of business and investment and savings and even spending money. Most people these days transact via M-Pesa. So there's so much we could learn from people, about people, of course, without intruding in their privacy, because fortunately we now have data protection laws. So my thinking is that if government is going to use this also to know their citizens better without infringing in their privacy, knowing their spending culture, It's helpful, but more so knowing also what needs and what services they buy. So the aspect of data analysis and analytics is going to be very key, and I'm hoping it's going to be all
Dr.
embedded.
You know, on integrity of the system, you know, you're the IT guy.
Sure.
For example, the Auditor General needs to audit. This is public funds.
Yes.
You know, in the old days, what Dr. Jim and others have taught us, McPhee and others, on how banks create credit, the basics in economics. Here we have not banks, but a digital platform creating credit. Auditor General needs to ensure accountability. He needs to audit.
Sure.
Is that money actually there being lent out? What are the chances that some tech guru can sit and create his own credit and start ambassading money to to others? So I'm just wondering, in terms of the integrity of this system,
correct,
what are the chances that this thing can actually be abused? Because for me, the abuse is not about people borrowing and not paying, but the risk that someone out there can set up the system, create 1,000 ID cards, and collect 50,000 times.
You raise a very important question, because I think there was also a report regarding also the cybersecurity and how the hackers they're walking away with millions from some of his funds.
Just briefly on that, the issue of cybersecurity and information security generally is a major one. I don't think our financial institutions are reporting all that's happening. But the good thing is that...
of course, they can't. People,
of course.
They'll be bank runs and...
there would be trouble. But the good thing is that as we say in physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there are safeguards. Kenya's got some of the best cybersecurity experts in the continent. We just need to take advantage of the manner of Kenyans who provide cybersecurity services for big banks in New York, for example. So, yes, as the Informatician Society of Kenya, which brings ICT professionals together, I think they're more than happy to work with the financial institutions. But yes, the issue is when the system is being designed, the aspect of cybersecurity in this and abuse, which is real, has got to be factored in. The good thing is that it's doable. Even though no system is 100% secure, even the US NASA systems can be cracked. But you want to add what we call factors of 9. As long as you are 99.99% secure, it's fine. That's how we sustain M-Pesa. It's not that people don't abuse it, but the abuse is so minimal and manageable.
Right. Yeah, I was just lifting, the headline in the business segment of the Standard today to Bill Okero, that there's alarm as local cyber attacks rise 200% to hit all-time high. They're saying attacks detected in 3 months to September stood at 278 million, up from 92 in the previous quarter. System vulnerabilities, malware, and denial of service attacks were some of the most common tactics adopted by criminals. The Communications Authority of Kenya has warned that more Kenyans are falling victim to criminals online as cybercrimes cases in the country hit an all-time high. So this is being launched on this, and I remember a while back also somebody hacked on my phone, all right? And you could load up this is way back.
Sure.
I can load up some units on my phone. I wake up in the morning, I find it's gone. And then you go and see there's an activity that, somebody has been calling through my phone. And I wondered, how is that really happening? So even with this particular fund, I mean, where is the security of this, if this is, and you're saying this is very conservative? That because they're not fully giving the full reality of what is happening on cybersecurity. And right now we know even some of these techies, they're looking for forensic audits and experts, which is lacking in this country. Strathmore, I know as well, you were about to launch something on forensic audits within financial forensic audits, but there's lack of lecturers. Not getting lecturers from India as well. They prove to be very expensive at the end of the day. I don't know. Sorry.
You should find some hackers.
Some hackers. You know what I was thinking? Because Jim, you were talking about that particular woman that has this designing
Right.
gift that Bilo will walk and he'll look at Bilo. No, this is a no. Yeah, we can't, offer a credit facility to Bill. And it reminds me of Abagnale. If you watch the movie Catch Me If You Can, that we had, Leo DiCaprio really playing the son of Abagnale. He had this gift of being a consummate con, with very lucrative salary, held a big position. He was, in his lifetime, a pilot.
Right.
He was a consummate lawyer, a con lawyer. He was a chief of staff, actually, in a hospital. And then he also was faking, checks until FBI caught up with him. They locked him up in jail. And they said, wait a minute, we have a gift.
Mm-hmm.
We have a gift in this guy. Well, should we be actually locking him up?
Yeah.
Because they used to go and get the checks to him, and you tell him, this is a fake one.
Right.
This is a good one.
That's right.
This is genuine.
That's what Jim
And
does.
that's how the banks actually opened up the check fraud department because of that particular gentleman. If we have a gift,
Right.
Anyway, I've even lost my track of thought of what you were talking about there. I'll just still on take yes.
Ethical hackers we call
Ethical
those.
hackers.
Yeah, and we need to take advantage of them. It's true, when you get hold of them, we need to figure out what are those unique skills and attributes that they have that we need to utilize. But in all this debate, the aspect of education, public education, is going to be so critical. Even as government rolls out this Hustler Fund, there needs to be quite a bit more, and technology even has a role to play in that regard in terms of social media and so on. But in terms of cybersecurity, I'm surprised when we say there's a shortage, we can't get lecturers. Maybe this is another area where diasporas come in, because we have them. Whether you go to Tesla and so on, you have Kenyans holding very high positions. And for now that December has started, a number of them are around for vacation.
Yeah.
Why don't we utilize their resources?
International Atomic Agency as well.
Yes, so cyber security is no rocket science, so to speak. In fact, I was with a light touch while in Virginia, Washington, D.C., I gathered that a Kenyan, a young guy, about 30-year-old, owns a plane and shuttles people from one city of the U.S. to another. So when you are talking of somebody owning planes, but this is a tech guy. There is so much that we could leverage, even in terms of cybersecurity. But even for our universities, I think those are areas where we need to train more. And I think government, without going to specific, there was talk of denial of service, malware, and so on, the various problems. I think even as government, some state departments are training people. The last I checked, there were already about 5,000 cyber security experts trained in low level. I think they are absorbed in our system. So maybe the Communications Authority needs to come out in this, work with professionals and experts, because there's no shortage. So yes, cybersecurity is a problem, but it's a problem we can confront and manage, keep to manageable levels. Lastly, just about a month ago, even my own wife, on a Sabbath, Saturday, we're in church, and then the bank informs her that she gets a message alert saying your account has been debited with this amount, and she's in church. So fortunately, she was able to alert. There were multiple withdrawals within a span of just 30 minutes, about 5-6 withdrawals. But somehow she was able to alert the banks. And being a Saturday, it wasn't very easy, but the banks were able to recover all that money. Meaning there are mechanisms to minimize if there's a proper plan to contain cybersecurity. So I want to reassure Kenyans, it's a problem, but it's not insurmountable.
It's not insurmountable. Yeah. Bill, you, some of these people that we've seen, the KRA, who are hackers, employees, and then they're taken to jail, we are talking about ethical hackers here. Can we convert them to ethical hackers since they are gifted as well? Right. And they're looking for this particular talent.
You see, these multinational companies, these big ones, they actually hire hackers to test their systems.
True.
You actually engage a hacker, and you try and hack our system, and you get paid for it.
Yeah.
The idea is what we call the ethical, to test whether your system is
resilient.
resilient and can withstand that. But for me, the issue is this is government, and and so government accountability for government funds is different from what happens to the others institutions, banks, and these private companies have ways of dealing with their own. But government money, there's always, because you're dealing with public servants, there's always that level of laxity. This is public money. So that's why I'm worried when government now goes into this level of technology, similar to Fuliza, then you have an auditor who needs to check whether this money is actually being spent, whether actually the 50 billion has been put out there in the loan. You won't know. Out here you would know that people have borrowed 500 billion, 600 billion, but you don't know how much is the actual amount of money that has been put there. So there's a lot of work, I think, for the Auditor General's office to try and ensure that the integrity of this system, so that we don't lose money, because we've always found people finding ways of getting into the system to get money from government.
Debala, I think it's important to keep in mind that this whole thing of cybersecurity is a worldwide problem.
True.
And was it a year ago or possibly 2 years ago now, when the Colonial Pipeline, which takes oil from Texas up to the whole of the east coast of the US, that was closed down by Russian hackers. Now, these hackers can be not only here in Kenya, I don't know where Shem did his degree in computer science, but they say that the center of cybercrime in Kenya is Juja. And why is that the case? Juja, yeah. Well, I don't know whether you know the JKU Act is actually... Now, you get these incredibly clever young men.
Right.
They come out of JKU Act. They're renting a room there. They can't get a job in Nairobi. They can't get a job anywhere. So what do? They have to actually live. Right. And those people, you had a young man actually get into one of the big banks here in Kenya and transfer 200 million shillings. Now, he did that purely to show the bank that their security was not good enough. Now, the only problem is, if you have a really talented hacker, they will get into any system. Right. And the problem all the time is, when is this going to happen, not if it's going to happen. And so businesses today are told, look, you just got to be ready to lose money here. Now, you take all the possible precautions that you can take, but still you're going to be hacked. And now, because the big companies that Bila was telling us about, these people have professionals trying to hack into their system. There's a person in the United States who earns more than $1 million a year doing that particular job. But the position there, is that those big companies have fortified themselves against hackers, so hackers now are going to the smaller people. And, Shem was talking about his own wife. I don't know. Right. He was thinking about someone else's wife. But anyway, this was his own wife.
I know.
Who actually lost his money. And now that happens. That happens a lot. And some people, his wife, thank goodness, was alert enough to realize, now wait a moment, my money is being stolen. And she alerted the bank, because a lot of people, they're not even aware. They look at this thing, okay, what's this, maybe they've had 5 Tuskers, so...
Correct. In light of that, even as we're winding up with the Hustler Fund, we had yesterday in the Business Daily where they were looking at the FTX, the collapsed U.S. crypto firm in the U.S., putting billions in 3 Kenyan firms. FTX invested in BitPesa, Mara, and Cheap Cash. Tycoon used investors' billions to fund lavish lifestyle. And I was just also looking at the Washington Post, and that was the previous day there, where it says a crypto kingpin courted regulators. FTX had championed a plan to reshape his own market's oversight. And it says, before his undoing this month, crypto magnate Sam Bankman-Fried aggressively pursued powerful allies in Washington. None was more important than Rostin Benham, the chief of a federal agency that oversees the commodities markets Benham holds a strategic perch among the nation's financial regulators. And then Wall Street Journal said, crypto lender, that is a BlockFi, files for Chapter 11. Company plans to use bankruptcy to recover what it can from failed exchange of the FTX. And here, they want to put billions in 3 Kenyan firms. And we've seen all this that is happening in the US as well. Maybe just as we're winding up...
if you allow Debal, we're living in very exciting times in terms of digital money, currency. Probably colleagues have heard of this Lumi, an African digital fund. There is the Africa Diaspora Central Bank, recognized by African. There is a consortium, I think, kings and queens of Africa, cultural traditional leaders. They're already doing billions of dollars of transactions through the Lumi as a currency. Even within Kenya, there are WirePay, there is lots of products coming up, Tap Send, and so on. A number of course, will be in show next week. But I should say that even within this regard, we have a consortium. I'm seeing quite a bit of tweet, the cybersecurity consortium with experts, including lawyers. Don't have many who have done cybersecurity laws, both tech and law at the same time. My premise is I would want to encourage such people, in addition to Strathmore University, that's doing an excellent job, but also lies with the Informatician Society of Kenya. We have some of those top-notch cybersecurity experts that we should utilize as a country to secure, just as our army and military is securing our territory. These guys are capable of securing to the extent that's possible. And I would want to encourage our banks, and a number of the banks and financial institutions are already working with them. So in a nutshell, I would say there's no shortage. Just to answer Jim, as an alumnus of University of Nairobi, but of course UK, York, and US, University of California, Berkeley. So some of the best institutions in terms of this area that we are talking about. And we have lots of other products that are only waiting to be deployed. We haven't sufficiently utilized them. Let's give them an opportunity. Hopefully this is where the CBC review that's taking place.
This is, and I think you've oriented my thought to where I was going.
Thank you.
Because I was holding a conversation with a gentleman just we met somewhere at a petrol station there. And the daughter had passed with flying colors. Right. And she was, I think, selected to go and take medicine at the university. Right. But she was declining. You see, she says, no, I don't want just to be a doctor. I think I want to go to forensic audits, financial forensic audits. And this is where Jim, where you actually come in. Because now, School of Accountancy, there's a now new arena that is coming. They just don't need you to have a CPA. But they want you also to have, other techie issues, because that's where every transaction is headed to, to the digital platform. So forensic audits side, how then are you sort of reconfiguring as a university? And even with the CBC and the coding that we know is being introduced, it's really changing the way also careers will be chosen and how informing the young ones who are coming into the world of the digital platform. That is not just about CPA, but also it's about the digital platform. You need to be conversant to. It's a bit of coding. You can be a hacker, consummate hacker. This is what Google are looking for now that they're coming into Africa. This is what IBM actually is looking for as well. Right. And this is what now you need to be teaching. I don't know.
Well, you see, I think you can talk about the basics of protection. But, if I wanted to become a hacker, I'd really have to become a very, very consummate computer programmer.
Correct.
And, I know that, for example, every time I talk to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, I'm always telling them, look, get into IT. Because this is, more and more systems are working on IT. A small business may still have paper records, but any bigger system is working all the time on a computer system. And so any auditor has got to actually know about that. My own experience, however, is that, students are very, very lackadaisical these days. They don't really want to go anything beyond what is the absolute minimum. But there are people, and this is why there was a young man who actually he did a course in IT, he did a BBIT, but he also did the ACCA course at the same time. And he actually became a partner in KPMG. And he used to come along to companies where he would be the person who looked at the IT system. The only thing is, well, he actually passed away, unfortunately, during COVID about a little bit more than a year ago. But that is the trend that is happening right across the world. Accountants have to be experts in IT. And the internal auditor in Safaricom, he tells people, look, you've got to go out and learn Python. Python is a computer language. You know, some people say Ninyoka.
I know. Good one.
But, you know, it is a computer language. And, and his take is, look, you've got to be expert in that. And that's, you're right. You know, we've got to reorient. In fact, when one does the CPA, you actually do a little bit of forensic accounting. But to my mind, an insufficient amount. And I think, you know, IT has got to play, I feel, a much bigger part in the accounting curriculum than it does today. That's my own take.
This is so key to me, if you allow.
Just let me hear from Justice Sako. We'll come to you, and we wind up with Bill Okero, then at least we'll get your comment.
Okay. I think I've said a lot about this whole thing about IT and technology and so on. The only thing I want to go back to is on the Hustler Fund in relating to this discussion, that the risks to the fund may not lie in the losses at the bottom with the 20 shilling borrowers, 2,000 shilling borrowers. It may also lie towards the top. We are almost invariably in our institutions. We are getting big heists occurring. So I just hope that, and this will occur even with IT, because they are the same people who will override the IT instructions. And I just hope that we'll look at, it will be quite sad the day we hear that billions have been stolen from a fund like this that could probably make a difference between life and death for the people that we are dealing with. The hardships are real.
All right. Let's hear from you, Dr.
I wanted to mention the tech part is so key. Over the weekend, we had a Twitter space that as part of addressing the CBC review, there's a presidential team, which I think is handing in a report tomorrow. One of the things we did, we were gathering inputs from Kenyan senior professionals in Korea, in Germany, in Finland, in the US, in UK, sharing their experiences, what education systems they have. One thing that struck me for Germany, they have taken closer look at IT. I know there's talk of technology, and with a light touch, have always asked, why is it that we don't treat our technology people well? I am reminded of a senior former University of Nairobi Don professor, engineering professor, who people say he moved from a university house to the grave. And then you say, this is top-notch engineer. How well should we have handled them? Then somebody told us, well, our first post-independence minister once said that technical education is for failures. Yet, the rest of the world, that's the direction we are moving towards. So my premise is that, and that conversation of curricular review continues on Twitter Spaces, and I'd want to encourage more to participate, particularly those outside, to share experiences. What are other countries doing better that we can learn? One that struck me most, and I will end with this, is there is a European Business University in Brussels, owned by a Kenyan, Dr. Muli, with 15,000 students, 9,000 of them Kenyan students. It's such amazing, it's so unbelievable. Remember, Brussels is where we have Professor Ndemo now, as well as Ambassador, and quite fantastic work is happening there. But maybe we'll be talking more of this during the event next week. We want to engage more with our best brains, particularly in tech, in particular ICT, because really it undercuts, even though Jim talked about accounting, whether we talk of value addition in agribusiness or whatever else, robotics, and whatever other things you can think about, tech, IT is so critical that we need to mainstream it.
Right.
And the time is right. This is the time.
And I encourage all of us also to join the Gumbaru of the CBC now that coding is going to the early primary schools as well. I've enrolled myself. I just begin with the class 6.
CBC as opposed to
and you can see I have also a copy there of the Python, the complete manual. This is the Nyoka
the
that we had Dr. Wafi talking, the essential handbook of Python users, starting coding today. Yeah, so simply you can
Right.
begin. That is what was this gentleman that 91-year-old?
Right.
Can you remember his name? The grade one.
Oh yes, that Mzee.
Kimani Maruge.
Yeah,
Yes.
Kimani Maruge.
late-
You can become the late Kimani
he passed
Maruge.
on.
Yeah, who passed on. He had enrolled in, I think, class 1 at the age of 90.
No, he enrolled at 84.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
84.
But he
Quite
went all the way to
commendable.
grade 7. Maybe it was 91, 98.
Yeah, to grade 7.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it,
With the lights.
it was that final exam which killed him.
And the ball with the light touch, talking of CBC, there's those who talk of BBC as born before computers as well. Yeah.
All right, that's Python for you. Of course, you can look up in the internet for you to just get acquainted with what Python is all about.
Sure.
But I want to just interest also Bill Okero, because you've been very particular intent, especially on what is happening with the dollars. And we had, where is this? I just had it here and I can't see it. The banking sector making the profit, super normal profits there as far as the dollar crisis is concerned, with the dollar crunch. I'll just put it up. But you can just begin from there to tell us more.
Yeah, we've seen the banks for the 9 months, they made 52 billion.
52 billion.
On the foreign exchange. And it's clear, I mean, there is a dual exchange market. What central bank, publishes is only for interbank or, but in reality, in the banks, as businessmen, we are borrowing at 125, 126, and for most of this year. And those banks have been buying at 118, 116, 120 now. And central bank is aware of this. And, you allow the banks to, and it's part of the reason why many of the exporters decide to leave their money in dollars. In their accounts, because tomorrow when you want to buy it, you'll end up buying at 125. So the banks have made huge amounts of money, and this is not fair. I've always said my problem with central bank, it doesn't matter which governor is there, is that they seem to focus on protection of the interests of banks only, not the rest of the economy. This is why in this country, even when the economy is in recession, everyone else is, all the blue chip companies have issued profit warnings. Banks are making astronomical profits.
Yes.
In the 9 months you've seen, just published this week, all the banks, some have made up to 36 billion, 33 billion, 30 billion in 9 months. And this is when the rest of the economy it's on the floor.
Right.
So this is because of the policies of the government. And I've always said it is the policies of the government that make people rich or poor in this country. And so this overprotection of banks, giving them opportunity to lend without any control to government. For example, if you look at any of the results being published this week, you'll find about 50% of their lending is to treasury bills and bonds in the central bank. And the yield is now up to 15, up to 12, 13, 14%. So it's crazy. I mean, you can't allow that. You can't allow that. I mean, of course, the government doesn't need to really do what it's doing in terms of and Treasury. CS has just said last week that there's no more headroom for borrowing. But I think the fact is that central bank should review its policies in terms of enhancing the interests of other stakeholders in the economy, because you cannot just look at the interests of the banks. And I think this is unfortunate that this is happening.
So, Dr. Jim, has the regulator failed in this attempt to try and regulate us supporting it?
Well, I think the big problem here, you see, is that, let's face it, a parallel market exists. People are not actually going through the banks. Well, put it this way, the numbers, as Bello rightly mentions, if you look at the newspaper today, the mean rate is 122 shillings and 40 cents. But I know I was talking to someone yesterday, they wanted to buy dollars. I think they're buying them at 128 shillings a dollar.
Sure.
So
128 now.
and
Wow.
then also, he also brings dollars into Kenya, and if he actually gives them to the bank, he'll get 120 shillings. So what do you do in this case here, because that spread is so wide? And I think the spread is that wide because, this parallel market exists. How to eliminate that is incredibly difficult. The the unfortunate thing is, all the tea exporters, all the coffee exporters, all the flour exporters, you're mentioning that what they're doing is they're holding their money abroad because, they see the dollar is going up. If you're paid in euros, you try to get rid of those euros as quickly as you can because the euro even is falling more than the Kenya shilling against the dollar. But it's a very, very difficult thing. We talk about the government trying to regulate, and obviously the arm of government here is the Central Bank of Kenya. And, I must say, I feel that, many of our regulators don't really think sufficiently. Their one idea is this thing of protection, follow the rule, think outside the box. No. The rule is in the prudential guideline or whatever document it is, and people just, they're not really thinking along with the market. And I have friends in the Central Bank of Kenya, and when I say that the Central Bank of Kenya is over-regulating some of the things, they agree with me. So, the situation here, I think, is that we've got to have a much more business-savvy group of regulators who know what business is all about. And, not a person who's been, let me say, in the IMF or something of that nature. Well, the IMF, this is God. No, it's, have you actually worked in a bank? Do you know what banking is all about? How do you get over the problems that, the excessive profits of the banks, as Billo was mentioning, is incredible. It's incredible. And, Bamburi has issued a profit warning. As Billo said, a whole lot of companies are issuing, even the NSE itself is issuing a profit warning, the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And yet, the banks are making this money. And they're making that money from Kenyans. I think it's important to keep in mind that, it is Tom, Dick and Owino in Kenya who's borrowing money or who is buying dollars to import goods or whatever it is. And this, the amount of money that made there, is it for the good of Kenya? I don't think so. But that's my own view. I feel it's very difficult to moderate that.
Can we hear from Bunyasi? We'll come to you.
Yes, I think this is a very interesting subject. It's been a challenge for many years, particularly, for example, during periods in which there were requirements for sectoral allocation of resources by banks and so on. And at the same time, government had a big appetite for funds. So when they float bonds or even sell the paper that central bank discounts for government, the banks can easily put money there and make the profit. They don't have to lend out to a sector. And I think it's an ongoing problem. I just don't know how you really get a handle of that, because it's not illegal. It just has certain consequences that are not desirable. In my view, I think the interaction between the Central Bank of Kenya and other institutions that work in a similar space, starting with the Treasury, maybe para-government think tanks and so on, maybe industry institutions, the Chamber of Commerce's, the export type forums and so on, are not putting enough pressure on the Central Bank as for how their policies are impacting the real sectors in which they work. I think they do put. They don't want to understate that at all. But the consequence of it is that there's still a big loophole that the bank has to do to make the money, like they did over COVID. It's amazing what profit levels they made during that COVID period. The economy was going down, but they were making more. I mean, it's almost embarrassing for them to publish their results, I think.
While people are suffering less and,
but yet it's still legal. Yeah, but there are aspects then of economic management system that I think we need to look at carefully.
Right.
The Mheshimiwa talked of all the major stakeholders in this regard, except one, which is probably the most important, the diasporas. Because if we're talking of this forex, the 4 billion that comes into our economy largely is the diasporas. And I will be a little softer on the banks. Obviously, business is like willing buyer, willing seller. But obviously, it's got to be incumbent upon the regulator to have regulations and guidelines that cushion. The spread obviously is an issue of concern, but I think it's a conversation the banks need to have with the diasporas, and a number of tier 1, tier 2 are already doing that. I'm very excited about a new CS of National Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, and we're already in conversations. Hopefully, going forward at the right time, we could look at even things that Nigeria has done. About 2 years ago, they had a diaspora bond that oversubscribed 3 times. They raised $380 billion. But of course, Kenya, in the past, has tried this, but was done the wrong way. It was assumed the bureaucrats thought this is going to work for the diasporas without public participation involving them. So hopefully, again, with the new regime, I'm hoping they're going to be given a free hand to practice. But clearly, we must improve on the regulation, and clearly, we must involve the shoe wearers, particularly the diasporas. If there's a little margin, let it also benefit those who bring into the money into the economy, so that there can be an incentive to bring more. As I said earlier on, only 5-10% is coming in. You can imagine if we unlocked the other remaining, we would be talking of $40 billion. That's like 4 trillion shillings, like our annual national budget. So this money could come in if we raise, let's say, a red carpet for the diasporas and secure their investments.
But you don't do that unless you grow the economy. Unless the growth is robust. Otherwise, that's the best red carpet for the diaspora.
Thank you. Let's hear from Bilo.
Let me just clarify. We have engaged the various stakeholders, KEPSA, CAM, and others, the central bank, including bankers. And it's about the leadership of central bank with respect. I think where we've had this problem. Because central bank has been playing second fiddle to government interest only. And part of the reasons why the central bank has insisted on this pricing mechanism that it has developed, because this is where the problem is, because they have fixed a price. In essence, they are controlling the exchange rate, saying you must be at 16, you must be at 19, you must be at 20. That is to protect the government in terms of its payment of the external loans. Because then every extra shilling, you'll end up another 40 billion shillings will be added to the amount that they have to pay. So the problem is not that the others have not engaged. They're really engaged, and it is, you've seen publicly the CBK governor coming out a few months ago saying, telling manufacturers and others to go to hell. I mean, what are you talking about? There's nothing called parallel market, and everyone's selling it, but this is what we're buying it from the bank. And what you're buying at from the bank is not something hidden. You go to the bank and they sell you at 128 in broad daylight. So, and the central bank says, no, the rate is 122. You can't, and the bank is told you can't buy from his clients, the diaspora, at more than 120. And so you're benefiting the banks directly. This is so you should change it's about the policy on the pricing mechanism done by the central bank.
Allow me to just
same central bank that has allowed government to borrow. You've seen the overdraft. It's gone over 67 billion. We were told the other day.
Overdraft.
It's like printing money. The government has no money. It's broke, and central bank selling them collect money to go and spend. It's so. We have a problem with central bank.
Yeah. Oh, okay, we want to take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we look at the issue of the president saying that we'll be navel-gazing here, borrowing from within. And this is where we have this situation of supernormal profits for the banks as well. We had him, he was in South Korea. We got at least $2 billion from the South Korean government. He's looking east and west in terms of support. He's speaking also to his line of advancing his campaigns with that we will not be externally borrowing, but now we can see he's doing that at the end of the day. But even more importantly is what is on the front page of the Business Daily, not today, but we shall look at today's as well, a big topic. But on Monday, it was talking about what we were talking with Jim here, I should say. Only 9% of Kenyans have permanent full-time jobs. And this is a story there that says less than 10% of Kenyan adults have permanent full-time jobs, underscoring the high poverty and dependency levels in an economy where the government is struggling to tackle an acute unemployment problem. The average share of workers in permanent full-time jobs stood at 9% last year. This is according to a survey, a part conducted by Central Bank of Kenya, which list Garissa, Wajir, Turkana, and Kwale as counties with the smallest proportion of quality employment. We'll take a short break. Don't go away.